Good evening, tasters. Nibbler here again. This is my 50th Nightcap note. Now here in Australia, our national game of cricket, if you make it to 50, a half century, you get to raise your bat. Well, hallelujah, I'll raise my bat. But if you have a look, I've relabelled the bat. That's because for my 50th Nightcap note, I'd like to discuss my second favourite whisky. I've already reviewed the Lagavulin 16, which I would rate as number 1 on my list. The Laphroaig 10-year-old, I definitely rate as number 2. I have a bit of history with the Laphroaig 10-year-old. I used to think Scotch was awful stuff. You needed to put heaps of whiskey, not heaps of whiskey, you needed to put heaps of water or Coke or some other stuff to take away the burn. However, on my 50th birthday, I had been reading this book called The Eiger Sanction, in which the main character, Jonathan Hemlock, who in the movie is played by Clint Eastwood, if you've seen the movie, his favourite drink was stuff that I used to pronounce Laphroaig. On my 50th birthday, I got a gift from my daughter. She gave me $50. And I went into the bottle shop, and on the shelf was this Laphroaig stuff that was just a little more than $50. So I decided to buy it, brought it home, and it's changed my life. From one bottle is my collection around me of almost 200. I also had the privilege in 2007 of visiting the Laphroaig Distillery, not the Laphroaig Distillery, and these photos show part of that visit. This one is of me standing in front of the warehouse where the barrels are stored, and I've labelled it The Brave Taster. And this photo is of me standing in front of the stills in Laphroaig. The next photo is a sign for the peat bog, and please notice the water in that bog. That's got peat riddled through it, little bits of peat, and that's the water that's used in the distilling process. And here's me planting my Australian flag on my square foot of peat, for which, when I turn up to the distillery, I get a small bottle of rent. And here is me receiving my rent. Anyway, that's all history stuff. Laphroaig, the tour at Laphroaig was just sensational. If you get a chance to do it, do so. Okay, the Laphroaig 10-year-old colour is like a bright straw. Yeah, a phrase I've used a couple of times before, blessed are the big noses. This has got a fabulous nose, really strong peat, and there's a medicinal character, like might be iodine or Band-Aids or something, but it's a sort of medicine that you'd really want to cure your colds. And there's a dose of salted fish and a huge salt spray. It's got a great nose. And Laphroaig has that unmistakable, huge lifted lashings of peat that doesn't kill everything else, but is there in spades. It's spicy, there's pepper, even a bit of seaweed, because that warehouse that the barrels are stored in is lashed by the Irish Sea during storms. This is unmistakable. You could pick this out of a lineup of 10 different whiskies. Laphroaig. The finish is big and long. There's lots of hints of tar and of, the remnants of a barbecue. And yet it finishes dry. It's lovely. I'll probably never go back to the island of Islay, and one of my viewers, Anthony, has corrected my pronunciation. It should be Isla, but I'm Australian, and I say it how it looks. This, as I said, is my second whisky on the list, and I love it. And I always have a bottle. This is probably my, 8th bottle in 15 years, and it's one that I'll always replace. Laphroaig 10-year-old. If you haven't tasted it, it is a must. Trust me, you just have to try it. Great stuff. And may the Australians do well in cricket.